One of the problems with recruiting for investment banking is not the knowledge or skills you acquire, but the access to talk with real investment bankers to put your best foot forward. Our sponsor, WSO Academy, can provide those connections with 60 head mentors who are finance professionals at top firms like Goldman, Centerview, and JP Morgan. Imagine being able to get on the phone within 24 hours with one of the Academy's 1,300 mentors right before a critical interview. Get on the waitlist for WSO Academy today by clicking the link in the show notes or by visiting wallstreetoasis.com/academy. Explain PIK interests. We'll explore this today on Investment Banking Insights. All right. Welcome to Investment Banking Insights. This is the only show dedicated to helping you learn both the technical and non-technical aspects of the investment banking process. Hello, my name is Alex Mason and I am your host. Thank you so much for joining me today. We're talking today about some concepts that might relate to leverage buyouts. And specifically, we've been diving into a lot of different aspects surrounding debt and financing because it is such a critical part of how LBO transactions work. And so today's question is this: explain PIK interests. Explain PIK interests. Now, recall that most types of debt rely on interest in the form of cash payments. And this is true for almost all types of debt. There's one type of debt, however, that's a little bit different, which we talked about several episodes ago, called mezzanine financing. And with this type of debt, sometimes interest is paid in cash, but it can also be paid using something called PIK interest or PIK interest. Now, what is this? PIK stands for paid in kind. And that just means that the cash payment normally due during the period is deferred until a later date. This amount then gets added to the debt balance and it compounds over time. Now, the term paid in kind originally referred to many different types of services or goods that were paid in lieu of cash payments. And you can imagine this, right? For example, in my own personal life, at one point, I lived with a family member of mine. And instead of paying them rent, I just helped them out in other ways. I helped with household duties like providing groceries, helping with the utility bills, and other things like taking out the trash, etc. So technically, in that situation, I wasn't paying any cash to this family member, but I was paying in a way to help them out. So that was just a personal example. But in the business context, the IRS refers to payments in kind as bartering income. So it is a form of income. It's just not recognized in the same way that normal cash payments are. Another thing to note about PIK interest is that when a company accrues the interest expense, even though they don't make a cash payment right away, that interest gets added to the principal balance of the debt. And so interest continues to get added to the principal in each period where the interest expense is accrued. And what that means is you get this further compounding of the interest owed at the end of the loan. So if you take out debt for, say, $2 million, and you have a 10% interest rate and it's PIK interest, well, in the first year, at the end of the first year, the company's cash flow statement isn't affected, right? Because there's no cash leaving the company's treasury to pay the interest, but you do have this accrued expense. You've got this liability because, the liability technically is the debt itself, but the accrued expense is 10% of 2 million, which is 200,000, right? And then that gets added onto the debt balance, which is your liability. Now you got 2.2 million in debt, and then it accrues again. What's 10% of 2.2 million? And so you just kind of keep adding this interest up over time to the point where the debt principal can actually grow over the life cycle of the loan. So that's a danger with PIK interest because it can add up very quickly, just like compounding adds up quickly from the investment perspective. So that's one thing to note. Now, another thing to note is that there are typically some prepayment provisions for debt where PIK interest is paid, because these types of loans are riskier than your traditional forms of debt. And so the investor wants to reduce their risk of not collecting their interest. So they don't want the loan to be paid off early, right? They want to collect their interest payments, even if it's deferred for a long time. They want to make their money. And so prepayment is usually like something they don't want. And you may see this type of loan with companies that are struggling, for example, or the company might necessarily not be struggling, but they might have long cash conversion cycles. And what I mean by that is that they have a lot of their capital tied up for long periods of time. So think about a company, for example, with a lot of machinery. They might need that cash every moment because they've got to upkeep their equipment. They've got to use it for their more traditional debt. So it might be useful from their perspective in the short term to have this PIK interest type of a loan so that they can eventually pay that back later. So that's another situation. But that's what PIK interest is. I hope this was useful for you. And that's what I got for you today on Investment Banking Insights. And I hope you're doing well. Again, my name is Alex Mason. I am your host, and I hope you have an incredible day. Take care.